I want to welcome Samaneh to the interview booth. Can you just introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Samaneh. I am the co-founder and chief product officer of Starbutter AI, and we build AI virtual assistants that help people pick financial products like credit cards, mortgages, and insurance.
Very cool, very cool. So what brings you to the DMA?
I was asked to speak.
Oh, great.
So I'll be speaking a little bit later on essentially voice commerce, which is right now the fastest growing channel by far of anything else we've seen.
Interesting. So you said you work for a lot of financial products.
We're a FinTech company. We're in the financial verticals, free to consumers, but we partner with the major banks and insurers.
Great. So what are the new opportunities you're bringing to consumers through the AI products that you have?
Think about it. Picking a financial product is a nightmare. It's really difficult unless you have an accounting, law, finance background. Trying to pick the best option among the hundreds and hundreds of options out there is a tough thing to do, and people don't want to feel stupid about their choices. Mm-hmm. So one thing we do with the AI technology, we do all the research on the background and say, we've looked at everything from Consumer Reports, JD Power, 500,000 complaints to the CFPB, et cetera, and it does all this research. It asks you questions about, what you're looking for, and then matches you to the best option. So that's on helping people really and adding value to really important choices. And then we're voice first technology, so you talk to it like you would an expert friend, like your savviest cousin about financial stuff. You go to them and say, hey, I'm looking for a mortgage. Where do I start? What questions do I ask? What do I look for? How do I find the best rates? And so the agent essentially acts as that, friendly expert cousin that you would otherwise go to.
Very cool. So now, is the product or what you're bringing to the financial services customers, is it served through like an Alexa skill? Is it through apps or mobile sites on different
your
banks?
stuff. That's good. So yes, we live on the open voice platforms. Primarily, the biggest platforms are Google Assistant, which is available either on an Android phone or the Google Home, Amazon Alexa, and then Facebook Messenger. And as you know, we have our theses around who the first winning platform is going to be, probably Google most likely, and then the second one, as soon as that opens up, will be there too.
Interesting. So when you're building it out, I imagine, are there a lot of implications? You have to build it completely separately for the different platforms, or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Some aspects of the core technology will be adaptable. For instance, the data analysis and the research that we do at the back end, some of the dev, but oftentimes you really have to adapt it to the platform you're on, especially if you're considering a multimodal experience. So a voice-only experience, very different from one where you have screen as a supplement, where now the person can actually look at the screen and have visuals to look at. So just very, very different nuances in thinking about how to build, those conversational components.
Interesting. So, after interviewing a lot of people and going to some sessions today and yesterday, you hear a lot of people talking about AI and some of the benefits of it. But you also hear a lot about, garbage in, garbage out. AI is learning off something, and you have to have the right information and data in at its base. So talk to me about how you advise clients to get started and make sure that they are putting the tool on top of something that's valuable and not just building on, unfounded truths at the base.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to AI, your platform decision is key because that's where people will come in from. So living on a Google Assistant, you have the benefit of something like natural discovery, organically people finding you, just like search SEO we have for the web, there's voice SEO. Mm-hmm. Alexa the same thing, Messenger the same thing, and then you could have a virtual assistant on your website. And so this way, that's capturing exactly the user base that you're drawing to yourself. So, to your point, making that platform decision based on where your user base is, so you can optimize for that data, drawing in the right crowd, and then, a real AI agent that has NLP, ML, DL, is like a toddler. Mm-hmm. And so you have to train it and grow it with lots of really good data for it to become an adult and then just be, essentially a superstar.
Now, do you have clients that want to jump right into it without having that base, or do they generally understand that?
So you can create sort of your initial minimum viable product based on initial things that you may have in-house. For instance, you may have, you have a call center. They have information. They know what questions people ask, those responses. Your marketing team has been optimizing websites and mobile apps for a long time based on data, right, what they're seeing. So initially you do some sort of just predictive kind of content building on here are the types of things we think our users want to know. This is how we've been responding to that on our current assets. So you build that in, and then you try to capture that 80% of the high volume, and then that the 20% long tail. You capture that as you get these more nuanced questions.
Very cool. So what is one of the biggest challenges your clients have when they come to you?
Biggest challenge is, virtual assistants are new. And so, clients that are very, very innovative jump on it. They see the power. Others, they have to obviously, there's got to be some internal buy-in of the power of it. So since we're at the early stages of this technology, being able to really show the metrics and say, hey, this works. Gartner's proved it, Comscore's proved it. There are all these big giant data companies that are showing it. And then, it's worth a test to see, if it works for your audience. So that's just in building that internal buy-in is probably the biggest thing.
Interesting. And so the technology is still very new for a lot of marketers,
yes.
And a lot of people are learning. Do you find a big learning curve when you onboard a new client, or do they just hand it over to you to
Sure.
put it in your hands?
Most of the kind of the nuanced aspects of the technology we just handle, but it's a partnership, so we bring in expertise from the client side to the extent that people want to own aspects of it. Mm-hmm. So, at the end of the day, it becomes a collaboration, and anything that's nuanced on our side, we handle completely. And then some clients, they want to be more involved. We welcome that.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that in some ways it's an extension of search or similar to search, but can you talk a little bit about what you see as the main differences as far as how the questions are asked, or the format of the questions, or the tone? And
Sure.
I've seen a couple articles about that, so I'd love to get your perspective.
Sure. So one of the kind of simplest things you see, and we didn't know this initially. We did tons of user interviews and transcript analysis, is that queries tend to be more in sentence form and longer. So for instance, if you Google type search closest coffee shop, you're going to say Google closest coffee shop. If you're talking to users, you'll say where is the closest coffee shop. Now you've formulated a complete sentence. Mm-hmm. And being able to predict how many different ways are there to say that sentence to give the person the right response. That's really important, and that's one of the nuances that exist. The other thing is that, we see this with our tech, is that people will push your technology because now they're talking to a persona, right? Something that is pseudo-human in a way, mm-hmm. and they're speaking to it. It almost sounds like somebody would actually have a chat conversation with. So there are times where they get emotional, and they'll say, let's say there's a bug, and the bot breaks. They'll say, hey, can't you hear me? I said this to you 5 times, right? So it's a computer, right? Mm-hmm. Sure, it's an AI agent, but they'll get frustrated with it, and the emotions come through in the transcripts that we see.
That's amazing. My kids try to interact with Alexa, and she can't understand them hardly at all. And they get really frustrated, so it's interesting that you see that with adults as well.
Sure, yeah.
So any other pieces of advice for marketers today as they're trying to enter into the AI or voice tech space?
The biggest stat I can say is right now, 23% of all mobile search is in voice. Google and Comscore predict that to go to 50% as early as 2020. That's half of all mobile search and voice by 2020, mm-hmm. which means the tsunami is coming, and really the next step is just jump on it and start making those mistakes really early on so that you learn the technology and you can stay ahead of competitors, because it's one of the most powerful differentiators now that you could possibly have. Mm-hmm. So big opportunity for marketers.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's been great having you here.
Thank you very much.